Some thinkers say the universe is on a built-in countdown to switch itself off, and they regard that as the most merciful outcome possible. Take the 19th century German philosopher Philipp Mainländer. After years of office work that felt like running in place, he decided the whole cosmos is doing the same thing, only on a grand scale. Here is his startling idea in plain language. Picture your phone battery. No matter how often you charge it, the energy inside slowly degrades. Mainländer said everything, stars, cities, you and me, works the same way because the basic force that drives reality wants to wind itself down. He borrowed the term will from Arthur Schopenhauer but flipped its goal. Instead of a will to keep life going, he saw a will to end all strain. He even called the universe the decaying corpse of God, arguing that non-existence, not survival, is the finish line. Why does that matter to anyone buying groceries on a Tuesday? Because it shows how far a person can push a bleak outlook and still act with purpose. Mainländer knew daily life would stay full of chores, relationships, and small pleasures, yet he believed the big picture was hopeless, and he still wrote a 600-page book to explain it. He served in the army, supported social democratic reforms, and kept reading poetry for comfort. Actions like these reveal a practical truth. Even if you think existence is a net loss, you still make choices hour by hour. The core concept to remember is philosophical pessimism. It claims that pain outweighs joy and that the universe trends toward zero, much like a computer that will eventually power down. You do not have to accept the theory, but recognizing it can sharpen everyday decisions. If everything is temporary, wasting time on petty grudges or status games makes even less sense. Better to cut needless hassle now, switch off a noisy group chat, help a friend move, choose work you actually care about, than to pretend life's inconveniences add up to a grand plan. A person can stare at the darkest conclusion imaginable and still spend years creating, learning, and trying to lessen other people's hardships. That practical effort, not cosmic reassurance, is what remains within our control. But there's more to this line of thinking than just gloom. Philosophical pessimism, despite its dark tone, doesn't always lead to giving up. It can lead to stripping life down to what actually matters. For example, if you stop expecting the world to be fair, or your efforts to be rewarded just because you try hard, you might start doing things for their real, everyday value. Not because they're part of a bigger plan, but because they make sense now. This is where modern psychology oddly overlaps with Mainländer. Some therapists today help people cope by teaching radical acceptance, letting go of the idea that life should be a certain way. That doesn't mean you stop trying. It means you stop wasting energy fighting reality. That's exactly what Mainländer suggested on a cosmic level. The universe isn't trying to build towards something. It's winding down. So the goal shifts from achieving more to reducing unnecessary suffering. Even in technology, we see this mindset echoed. Think of the minimalist trend. Fewer apps, less noise, just what works. Or people leaving high-stress jobs not for fame or fortune, but to do quiet work with clear value, like nursing, teaching, or fixing bikes. Mainländer would likely see that as a wise response. If the whole system is fading, why not make the fading more bearable? This doesn't mean you have to agree with Mainländer's cosmic theory, but there's a practical takeaway. You don't have to find life meaningful in the big picture to care about people, enjoy a walk, or stand up for what's fair. You just have to decide that small-scale goodness is worth it, even in a universe that might not care. Philosophical pessimism sounds bleak, but in everyday life, it can lead to clearer thinking, fewer illusions, and better priorities. And maybe that's enough. Another surprising idea in philosophical pessimism is that expecting less from life might actually help people handle it better. Studies in psychology show that unmet expectations often cause more distress than actual bad events. For example, someone who expects their job to be fulfilling all the time might feel crushed by boredom or office politics. But someone who expects work to be just work, sometimes dull, sometimes okay, is less likely to feel betrayed by reality. This is one reason why pessimistic thinkers like Mainländer aren't always as hopeless as they seem. They're not saying give up. They're saying stop assuming things should be better than they are. That change in mindset can lower frustration and free up attention for what really counts. It's not defeatist, it's realistic. In fact, there's a quiet kind of strength in this outlook. If you accept that suffering is part of life, you can stop being shocked by it. That makes it easier to respond calmly and act with purpose. It's the opposite of denial. It's like carrying an umbrella because you know it might rain, not because you want it to rain, but because you're prepared. There's also a social angle to this. When people stop chasing endless success or constant happiness, They're often more available for others. They might be less judgmental, more generous with their time, and better at listening. After all, if nobody wins life in the end, it makes sense to help each other get through it with a little more dignity. Philosophical pessimism won't tell you how to be happy, but it can help you stop making things worse. It asks hard questions most of us try to avoid. But the answers, though uncomfortable, can lead to simpler, saner choices. Take care of others, don't expect perfection, and focus on what you can actually do, not what the universe owes you. Let's go one step further. Philosophical pessimism doesn't just change how we see life, it challenges how we see progress. Most people grow up believing things are always improving. New technology, better medicine, faster internet. It all feels like proof that the world is getting better. But pessimists like Mainländer flip the script. They argue that just because something is newer doesn't mean it's better in any lasting way. Think about smartphones. They're faster and more powerful than ever, but they also bring more distraction, stress, and surveillance. Or consider modern jobs. More connected, yes, but often more draining and less secure. From a pessimistic view, progress often just trades one kind of problem for another. That doesn't mean innovation is bad, but it means we shouldn't expect it to solve life's basic struggles. This idea lines up with something else that's become popular in recent years: burnout. A lot of people feel tired, overloaded, or quietly disappointed, even when on paper they're successful. Philosophical pessimism gives a possible explanation. Maybe life feels hard not because we're doing it wrong, but because life is hard. Always has been, always will be. That insight can be freeing. If you stop waiting for a perfect version of life to show up, you can start working with what's in front of you. Maybe that means cutting back on pointless tasks, setting firmer boundaries, or being okay with not achieving every goal. Maybe it means stopping long enough to actually enjoy the few parts of life that feel good, without feeling guilty for not doing more. Mainlander's view might seem extreme, but its value lies in its honesty. It strips away the fantasy that there's some future moment when everything clicks. Instead, it asks, how do you want to live knowing there might not be a happy ending? For some, that's the beginning of a calmer, clearer way of being. One built not on endless striving, but on accepting life's limits and making peace with them. You don't have to fix the world to live meaningfully in it. That goes against a lot of popular advice. We're often told to find our passion, make an impact, or leave a legacy. But Mainländer, and others who think like him, would say those goals are fine if they motivate you, but they're not required for a worthwhile life. Instead, meaning can come from smaller, more grounded things. Showing up for a friend, doing your job with care, or simply not adding to someone else's stress. These don't look dramatic, but they're solid. They don't rely on having the perfect career, or some big purpose. They just rely on doing what's within your control, honestly, calmly, and without pretending life is something it's not. This is where pessimism becomes oddly useful. If you accept that pain, loss, and confusion are part of the deal, you stop wasting time asking why they exist, and start focusing on how to handle them better. Like learning to budget time the way you'd budget money, knowing energy is limited, so you spend it wisely. Take relationships, for example. A lot of frustration in friendships or families comes from hoping others will change, or waiting for perfect harmony. But if you accept that people are flawed, and that you are too, it gets easier to forgive, to set boundaries, or to walk away when needed. You're not holding out for perfection anymore. You're dealing with reality, which is always a little messy. In that sense, philosophical pessimism is not about despair, it's about realism. It asks you to drop the fantasy version of life and engage with the one you actually have. That shift can feel like a loss at first, but over time, it becomes a strength. You stop clinging, you start choosing, and you focus on what makes life slightly better, even if it's not perfect, and never will be. Another often overlooked benefit of pessimistic thinking is clarity. When you stop assuming everything will work out, you start planning more carefully. That doesn't mean being paranoid. It means being realistic. For example, instead of blindly hoping your job will last forever, you start saving money or learning new skills just in case. Instead of assuming relationships will always run smoothly, you communicate early and directly. It's not about fear. It's about preparation. Philosophical pessimism encourages this kind of clear thinking because it removes the false comfort of automatic progress. It reminds you that things can go wrong, and often do. But far from making people helpless, that reminder can actually make them more steady. In a way, it's like wearing a seatbelt, not because you expect to crash, but because you know it's possible. This mindset also helps people stop overloading their lives. In a culture that values constant productivity, Pessimism gives permission to say, this is enough. You don't have to chase every opportunity, upgrade every device, or keep up with every trend. You can opt out. You can rest, not because you've earned it, but because rest is a basic part of staying sane in a world that doesn't slow down on its own. Even entertainment can feel different under this lens. Instead of seeing a movie or game as a waste of time, it becomes a way to feel joy or relief in a world that isn't always kind. You're not escaping reality. You're giving yourself a break from its weight. Philosophical pessimism reminds us that those breaks are not luxury. They're part of how we keep going. Accepting life's limits doesn't make you weaker. It can make you more compassionate, more deliberate, and more focused. You stop pretending life is easy. You start asking better questions. What matters now? What's worth my time? Who do I want to be? Even in a difficult world. The answers may be quiet, but they're yours, and they're enough. You don't have to feel optimistic to act responsibly or kindly. This runs against the common belief that hope is a requirement for motivation. But many people do what's right, not because they believe it will fix the world, but because it's still worth doing. Think about recycling. Some people do it, even if they believe climate change is unstoppable, not because they expect a perfect outcome, but because doing something, even small, is better than doing nothing. Or consider someone caring for an aging parent. They might feel overwhelmed or sad, but they still show up. The action doesn't come from hope. It comes from care, commitment, or simple decency. Values don't disappear just because the future looks uncertain. In fact, when you stop expecting guarantees, your values can become even clearer. You help someone not because it will change the world, but because they need help. You act with honesty not because it pays off, but because that's who you want to be. Philosophical pessimism also reminds us to expect contradictions. People can feel hopeless in one part of life but still deeply enjoy another. Someone might think humanity is headed in the wrong direction and still laugh at a joke, cook a great meal, or feel love. That doesn't make them fake. It just makes them human. This view leaves room for mixed feelings: frustration, calm, effort, joy, all at once. It suggests that we don't need one big emotion to guide us. We just need small, steady choices. Take care of the people close to you. Do your work as best you can. Find time to rest, and don't wait for life to make sense before living it. Pessimism doesn't mean nothing matters. It means you get to decide what matters, even in a world that doesn't offer neat answers. And that decision, quiet, honest, personal, is where real meaning begins. If there's one lasting insight from all this, it's that meaning doesn't have to come from the universe. It can come from you. Philosophical pessimism strips away the belief that life guarantees justice, happiness, or reward. What's left is something much simpler and more honest: your ability to respond. Not with grand gestures, but with thoughtful choices, even when nothing seems certain. This mindset isn't about giving in. It's about letting go of the need for a perfect story. You can be kind without needing a happy ending. You can do your job well without needing a promotion to feel proud. You can spend time with people you care about, not because it changes the world, but because connection itself matters. And if nothing lasts, that's all the more reason to be careful with your time and attention. To listen more, to argue less, to enjoy a quiet moment instead of always rushing to the next thing. Mainlander's view, that the universe is winding down, can sound bleak, but it also removes pressure. There's no scoreboard, no cosmic grade, just days, hours, and decisions. In the end, this kind of pessimism isn't defeat. It's a shift in focus, from chasing something distant to noticing what's here. Life might not add up to a perfect whole, but it does offer you the chance to reduce harm, to add moments of calm, and to treat people, including yourself, with a little more patience. That may not be the meaning we were taught to expect, but it's real, it's enough, and it's yours to live.